Hi guys and gals, in this video we're going to discuss how do you find and use primary sources. So first thing to remind us of is what is a primary source? Well, a primary source is a document from an actual historical time period. So for example, this is not a document written about the Civil War, but it is a letter that a soldier wrote during the Civil War. It's a source that was primary, that was truly connected to the historical time period with which we're researching. There's a lot of ways to find primary sources, but it can be sometimes tricky. Some topics are obviously going to be easier than others, but I do want to point you to some ways that you can have success in finding primary sources. Okay, this website, www.archives.gov, is run by the National Archives, a department of the government. Now, what is an archive? Have you ever heard of an archive? Maybe a movie archive or an archivist for a club or a group. It's basically a collection of documents or a collection of pieces. So sometimes an archivist for a club or something might make a scrapbook using like pictures from different events or tickets to events that were gone to or programs of certain events. They hold on to those materials. They might look at newspaper clippings that were published, right? To archive is to collect and to organize. And that's what the National Archives does with a ton of primary sources related to the United States. Now, this is only relevant to the United States, but it does have tons of good information. So as you can see, I put in Elbridge Gerry, and this is what it came up for with me. All these articles connecting to Elbridge Gerry. Now, not all of these are primary sources necessarily. Um, if you look at the top, it says it's going to find information from the archives and also the archive's social media. But it does give me a lot of really good articles and places that I could begin looking for primary documents. Okay. Um, we're also going to check out other places to find primary documents, specifically using the greatness of Google, but learning how we might have to meander a little bit to find what we really need. I do want to point out that as you read, you need to be adding to your annotated bibliography. In any research that you do, as you continue, be sure to write an annotated bibliography. However, this is a web page. I'm going to put it up for you in your eLab folder that specifically discusses the requirements for the National History Day contest annotated bibliography. It states that all categories need to have an annotated bibliography. It gives an example. It states that annotations only need to be about 1 to 3 sentences. You might have a little bit longer, but don't write too much. You need to, it says, the rule book states that annotations must explain how the source was used and how it helped you understand your topic. However, there's also a bunch of other things you can mention. For example, if it's a primary or secondary source, you actually have to, in your annotated bibliography for National History Day, make a section, secondary sources, and then you list all your secondary sources, primary sources, and then you list all your primary sources. So they can see very quickly how many primary and how many secondary sources you've used, and you always want to include as many primary sources as possible that is relevant, okay? So I'm going to show you how I came across primary sources for Elbridge Gerry, the topic that I'm discussing, the person that I'm discussing, and kind of how I had to meander through to find the materials that I'm going to use. So I literally typed into Google Elbridge Gerry primary source, and then I just started looking. So, Bill of Rights Institution. Okay, Institute. I read this. It is a short description of him. It has this activity. It says, explore Gerry's contribution with our activities. Well, when I clicked on that, it was this like little kid thing that you like kind of click on the characters and they talk to you, right? Like I ask them a question and I can see what he says.
Why then should the blacks, who are property in the South, be in the rule of representation more than the cattle and horses of the North? Taxation and representation ought to go together.
Okay, so this is not really an academic source that I want to use, and it doesn't have a primary source that I can, they might be pulling from a primary source, but this is not anything I'm going to use, so I can cross that out. The next material I found was this constitutional thing. Well, I looked here, and this is actually a Wiki space. And if I look, it has an essay attached to it. So I'm pretty sure that this is a student work, okay? It has works cited, but it's not a primary source, so X that out. Reasons for Elbridge Gerry not signing the federal constitution. Okay, I come to here. Let's see. Of the 42 delegates who stayed to the end of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, 39 signed the document. One who did not sign was Elbridge Gerry. A letter written by Gerry to the Massachusetts State Legislature appears below. Oh, awesome. Here's this letter. Cool. However, it says right here, view the original document from this place. I clicked on that original document and I was led to this weird page. I did not know what this was. And I think the link has actually changed. So this is no good for me. But this letter that specifically says, you know, I should submit my objections, that tells straight from Elbridge Gerry why he holds the opinion that he does, is very useful. So, being the clever Googleist that I am, I just copy and pasted like this whole huge section right here, which you can do in the awesomeness, and Googled it. Yay, Google. Put that all into Google, and I found this site. This site had the entire letter for me in a document, and I try to go, okay, can I read it all? Oh, I actually can read it all. Cool. I don't know, this is very great material for me. This actually looks really fascinating. This is from a book, and I get interested in it. And what I find over here is, this document expresses Elbridge Gerry's reservations about the proposed U.S. Constitution. Although Gerry was a delegate from Massachusetts at the Philadelphia Convention, he, along with 2 other members, refused to sign the document. Gerry listed among his concerns the lack of a Bill of Rights to protect individual rights and liberties. Awesome. Source type speech. Okay, it's a letter that he read. Here's the date. I saw this, the provider. The Internet Archive has given me access to this book. I don't know what this is. So I clicked here. And I was so excited by what I found, guys. This is a book that actually, way back here, is listed on Amazon for $30, $35. So instead, online, because I did a little bit of researching, I have access to the entire document for free. And then I want to know what this is. Okay, so this is the life of Elbridge Gerry. This was written, this is an old document, in and published in 1829. Awesome, old document. Discusses Elbridge Gerry, right? Says when it was published, this is great. It has not only that letter, but tons of letters, right? So I can use this entire source. I feel like this is a great source for me. This is an old book that was written about Elbridge Gerry right after his life, very shortly, like within 15 years of him dying. This book was published. It has many of the original letters. Like here's another letter from Mr. King to Mr. Gerry. So it has tons of information. It also has descriptions from somebody who lived during the time period. Woo! This is so exciting for me. As a researcher, this is I'm so excited. Okay? So I'm going to go back to I'm going to hold on to that, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to continue looking at what other sources I found. So here's Shays Rebellion. Let's see what this says. Looked at this. You know what? This looks like a really good document, possibly. It's from an EDU, but I could probably get it somewhere else. It's also focused on Shays Rebellion, which isn't my focus, and it's a secondary source, so I'm gonna X that one out. Okay? Then I get to these archives, and I open them up here, and this is what I found. This is so great. So this is a political document, a political newspaper, political cartoon, and down here, this is by, if you notice, Primary Source Nexus. So this is a whole database of just primary sources. And here's a curator's note. In 1812, Jeffersonian Republicans forced through the Massachusetts legislature a bill rearranging district lines to assure them an advantage in the upcoming senatorial elections. Although Governor Elbridge Gerry had only reluctantly signed the law, a Federalist editor is said to have exclaimed upon seeing the new district lines, "Salamander, call it a gerrymander." This cartoon map first appeared in the Boston Gazette for March 26, 1812. Look, and it's called "The Gerrymander, a New Species of Monster." And it has, look, it says "a new species of monster," which appeared in the district in January 1st, where they created it. So they drew the district lines, which are kind of bizarre, and then they turned it into a creature. This is a political cartoon. Awesome. This is very useful to me, okay? Because this is part of the other thing that Gerry is known for, is gerrymandering. Finally, I found one more source, pamphlets on the Constitution, and I found that here. What I see is this is a whole list of pamphlets, some by Elbridge Gerry, and I want to know, how do I get a hold of this? Well, down here there's different versions, so I clicked the one that was most useful to me and found all of this great information. So I can actually, I don't know if I can click here. So now I can just command find Gerry. Right? And I could click on all of these different things. Here is a pamphlet written by Elbridge Gerry. Wow, great. Tons of good resources for me. Okay, so basically, I found some primary sources. It took some meandering. You're going to have to shuffle through, spend a little bit of time deciding what's really relevant to you, and then you need to read it and write your annotations. But I do also want to show you how you can use those primary sources. So I'm going to use one example here. Well, two. First of all, for this letter, this is a direct letter to the Senate of the House of Representatives of Massachusetts that declares exactly why Elbridge Gerry doesn't like the quote. So you can use this, not just saying it for yourself, but pulling off great quotes from him. Okay? So, for example, right here he says, "The system is without security of the Bill of Rights. These are the objections are not local but apply to all." He says very big things about it. Okay? Great quotes I'm going to use in my paper. Additionally, if I have something like a political cartoon, I can bring it in and make it visually pleasing to my presentation. Okay, go and find some primary sources for yourself. Enjoy!